This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hi, Carm Capriotto, the Aftermarket Podcast Guy. Welcome to the 628th episode of Remarkable Results Radio. Hey, has your love of cars turned from hobby to career? Was it on the back burner as you pursue other ventures, but somehow you always circled back to it? Well, in this episode with 28-year-old Matthew Haugen, we learn his journey from being a baby in diapers trying to take off the wheels of his dad's Corvette to becoming a professional drifter and successful YouTuber influencer with a special trip to Japan in between. Find out how he did it. Hey, thanks to Apex and Shopware for this enlightening episode. I just heard that Apex 2021 will again have the best and the brightest trainers and another great schedule of technical and management training. Now, this is specifically for shop owners and technicians. Stay tuned here for more details, and for now, make sure Apex 2021 is on your calendar. November 2nd through the 4th in Las Vegas. You know, digital communication makes it easy for your customers to understand the value that you're providing when you fix their car. You will feel appreciated, your staff will feel appreciated, and most importantly, you'll sell the work to pay the bills. Know how? Go to getshopware.com and get a demo. Share the power of the Aftermarket's premier podcast. Now, have you told a friend lately on the fact that listening will get you one new idea or insight? We'll find the key talking points for this episode at remarkableresults.biz/E628. Hey, warm welcome to Matthew Haugen from Haugen Racing. Hey, Matthew, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Hey, we're great, man. Drifting, I just want everyone to know this is an episode on Matthew's entrepreneurialism in racing, his love for drifting. And if you don't know what drifting is, Matthew is going to explain what that is. A lot of neat stuff going on with your very young life. Glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So, drifting, you guys ever seen Tokyo Drift?
I have never, but of course, I think drifting started in Japan, right?
Yes. I feel like that movie, though, is where when just anybody, like people that are outside automotive, if they ask, you know, what's drifting? Or they say, oh, I've seen it in Tokyo Drift. So that's usually where I go to them. A lot of people have seen that movie, but if you haven't, go watch it. It's actually, the acting's horrible, but it's still a great movie. It's one of my favorites.
So, you know, here it is. You're not a car guy, but you loved cars at a young age. You were telling me that, was it your dad's Corvette? You were trying to take the wheels off of it when you were just a little thing?
Yeah, he had a old classic Vet that he had, I don't know, he'd put like different carburetor on and some nice wheels and exhaust. And I don't even know if he really took it to car shows per se, but he'd go to car shows some. And I was in my diaper and my cowboy boots and cowboy hat. I think I was 2, like just barely walking maybe. I was trying to yank the wheel off, like trying to get the lug nuts off and stuff.
And you were hooked.
Yeah, why? We don't know. Nobody knows. It's funny.
So where did you come up? Did you see Tokyo Drift and says, hey, I could do that? I mean, or did you just say, I'm going to get behind a wheel and see what happens? I mean, how did it start?
I had seen Tokyo Drift and never, I thought it was so cool, just like any other kid. I was like your regular kid that was obsessed with cars, but not from like a racing family or going to car shows or anything. But I started building vehicles for SEMA pretty early on. I was like 18, I think. I had my first truck in the SEMA show.
Wow, good for you.
Thanks. Yeah, it was really a special experience. But that was just as like a hobby, really. I loved building cars. And so I like worked with manufacturers to get parts and things like that and put display vehicles in the show. But I didn't have any shop behind it or anything like that. But then a couple of years later, I had a Genesis Coupe and was kind of tuning it, putting like a bigger turbo on it and doing things. Just still a street car, and I had it in SEMA. There's a local shop that I was working with, a tuner shop. They would do these fun weekend events where it's like, hey, bring your cars out that we've tuned up and see actually what they're made of, you know, because most of these guys they're like brand new Mercedes that they had done, you know, tuning on the bi-turbos and exhaust and stuff like that, and never really got to see what they were capable of. So this was a really fun event where they had instructors there and you could get some experience on the track in your car and see what it could really do. And one of the exercises was basically they had a circle, like a big circle of cones, maybe 200 feet wide, let's say. And you would go around and around the circle and go faster and faster until you felt that rear end kind of lose out. And so what you're learning is how to recover if the rear end goes out. And I just stomped on the throttle. I don't know why, but I did, and just drifted around all the cones. And I was just having a blast. And all the other people were like, "Oh, this is cool. Like, what is he doing?"
You'd seen the movie, and then you had a chance to actually get in there and say, "Hey, I could actually do this."
Yeah, and these were years apart. Like, there was no relation even at that point, But Tokyo Drift was my only exposure to drifting. Wow.
And it was in the back of your mind while you were out there doing this thing, and all of a sudden you found a new love at that point.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was, looking back. I think I was like, I could do this. And then it was just like, still not anything for a career or anything like that. It was just like, let's go see what this is all about. And just fell in deeper and deeper and deeper,
Tell me about the Bondurant School.
Yeah, so Bondurant School was great. And I went there to just learn. So obviously the bug was there after this weekend for racing or drifting, one of the two, or both. And so my parents, I was fortunate enough, they were like, "Hey, why don't we send you to Bondurant School so you're not doing this on the street and you learn some actual techniques, learn how to do it safely." Because they're like, "We know nothing about it, but we've seen this Bondurant School."
I got to stop you for a minute. Your parents said that? You went to them? Because it sounds interesting where the parents saw something in you and said, "We should do this." Or if so, then your mom and dad were very visionary.
It wasn't on that level, I don't think. Maybe looking from the outside it was, but they were more like, we have a feeling he's maybe racing on the street or going to start wanting to. And so we're like, let's get him a little bit of education in it. My mom, she has her PhD in business operations, so she's very educated. And so if she gets into something, whether it's cooking or scuba diving, whatever it is, she's like, let's take a class. Let's get some education. And so I think for there, it was only natural. She's like, why doesn't he go to racing school, learn a little bit so he doesn't hurt himself and actually learns to respect this thing,
Mm-hmm.
But that only sent me deeper. Like, now she wonders, she's like, why are you so obsessed with this whole thing? And I'm like, come on, you sent me to racing school, like, when I was like 21 or something. I think it was for my 21st birthday. I'm 28. I did just like an introduction class where we raced around Corvettes. And then I did an actual like road racing class. It was 3 days, I think. And then I did an advanced road racing class, which was 4 days. And that's how you actually get your license for like NASA and these things where you can go race at like a grassroots level and then start competing. In that, I talked to one of the instructors there who became a good friend of mine. He was a professional drifter at the time, working at the school. And I was like, which one should I do? Like, I kind of want to pursue one of these. And he said drifting. He's like, I think drifting is just, there's more, you can express yourself more in it. It's more like skateboarding or snowboarding, or has more art to it. I was already kind of pulling that way anyways. So then the last 2 days of the class, we brought down the drift car that I had kind of just built to get into drifting, and kind of tuned it up. And he helped me learn how to drift there. And yeah, from there on out, it was just, I don't know, down the rabbit hole.
So you're not a car guy, but you had the passion for it. You now are a drift racer. And tell me about the business side of Matt Haugen Racing. I mean, is this more natural to you to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so that was something like back to childhood when I was a kid. I can't remember the exact story, but my dad would say that I would tell him when I was like 4 or 5 years old, or I would say, hey, someday, like, I'm going to have a business and I'm going to be sitting behind the desk. And then I was like, and you can help me like clean the floors and stuff. And he was like, all right, buddy. He's like, oh, I'll be there. I'll help you out. He was an entrepreneur. He had his own business. And so as a kid, I would, every once in a while go to work with him and, see everyone, just not saying, hey, boss, but it was pretty obvious that he was, the boss there, and he had the office and all that stuff. And so that was my norm, I guess, and looking forward, I was like, well, that's what I'll do. I mean, why wouldn't I have my own business? And not realizing until I was, in my teens or a little older, even, that that's pretty impressive and hard to do. That's why everybody doesn't have a business, but I just thought it was like, that's what I do. I was just convinced.
Grew up in dad's footsteps, right? So you said to me that you love the Japanese culture. Was that a connection to drifting?
It's hard to target exactly kind of where that came in. I feel like most of my life I was like attracted to like things that were Japanese and like Eastern culture, but it really kind of more sprouted when we'd been going to the SEMA show. I'd built a couple cars for the show, and at the time my dad had a Lamborghini Murcielago, and I don't remember what year this was, what car I had in the show, but I was like, hey, we got to go to this Liberty Walk. If you guys haven't heard of Liberty Walk, them and Rocket Bunny started this wide body craze that I'm sure everyone's seen in the aftermarket world. It's crazy. But those are the guys that started it from Japan. And I don't remember how I had found out about it, probably Instagram or whatever. And I was like, we got to go see this wide body Murcielago. It's insane. And so we went to the booth, walked out, and Wataru Kato is the owner and founder of Liberty Walk, and his right-hand man is Toshi. And I didn't know them at the time, but Toshi comes over to us and he's like, hey, do you guys want to meet Mr. Kato? And we're like, sure. And he was starting to get some celebrity status at that point, but I didn't really know it. I was just like, all right. My dad had no idea. He was just like, okay, I'm just going to meet some guy. We start talking through Toshi, who's like translating because Kato doesn't speak any English and we don't speak any Japanese. And he's like, do you guys have a Lamborghini? And my dad goes, yeah, he has a Murcielago, pointing at me, like, kind of joking. Cause my dad and I were like best friends. And so he loved it. Kato was like, goes like this, like, you have the money and the kid has the car. And
yeah. As Matthew was rubbing his hands together, you didn't see that, but he was doing the money thing. Go ahead. Yeah.
Come to find out, Kato has a son. Kato's like similar to my dad's age, a little younger. And he has a son like a year younger than me. And they're best friends. His name's Yuma. And it's same relationship. He felt that like immediately. And there was just this crazy connection that was like out. I mean, it was beyond spoken language, and we all understood it. And he just kind of goes like, he's tapping his heart. And he's like, I want to build you guys a Murcielago body kit. This at the time, it was like his first limited edition kit. He'd only made 20 of them. And it was the first wide body supercar in the world that was done in that way with the riveted on fenders. And he's like, I want to build, it's discontinued, but I want to build you guys a 21st. And we're just like, we just walked over there just to show him the car to kind of speed it up. I mean, we ended up doing it. We talked about it for like the whole day. We were walking around SEMA and we're like, this seems like a once in a lifetime opportunity. So we ended up building the car, and Kato actually flew me out to go to the Tokyo Auto Salon and like hang out with them for the weekend. And like I went to his house and all that stuff. And that's kind of where it all just, I fell in love with the people first and foremost, and then the culture too. And when I was out there, I had been drifting now for like a year or something. So I actually went out to Bisu Circuit the day before the auto salon and got to drift in the wintertime, which my friend now, but Andy, who runs the track for Westerners out there, was like, oh, it probably won't be open, but he's like, I'll be here. You can come out. And so I was by myself in Japan, and I just like got a rental car and drove up there, and actually was a clear enough day to drift.
Amazing story, Matthew. It was almost like fate just rolled your way. Just your insistence on wanting to go into the booth, and so you come back with all this immersed culture and a renewed sense of, man, this is what I'm going to do and I got to do. Then did you form your company? And I got so many questions. How often do you race? You got a team? You got any people working for you?
So what's funny is it still was not that planned. See, from the beginning, racing was actually pushed back upon by my parents as like a path of a career, let's say. They're like, you can do it as a serious hobby, but we don't really see how you're going to make a career out of just that. And so even in high school, I had like painting taillights and installing underglow, for like friends' cars. But then in college, I started focusing on like everything but automotive, basically. I landed at the end of the senior year of college. I started like a ecommerce parts business with a partner. My plan for that was basically just as an experiment to learn how to hire people, learn how to run a business, just very traditional stuff. Didn't take a lot of like seed money. But throughout that, I also like worked on a fashion startup, a golf startup, another racing startup.
Classic entrepreneurial. Oh my.
But I was avoiding everything but racing, right? I even got to the point I had that e-commerce business and doing parts, but it wasn't racing. In grad school, I shut that business down, and the other ones had failed by that point. And then I was like, I got to put this in there in case there's any other fans out there, but I was trading cryptocurrency for like 3 months before grad school. I was like, what am I going to do for 3 months? I can't start another business. I can't go get a job. So I already had some crypto, and I was like, let's see what this is all about. So I did that for a couple months, which was crazy. But then in grad school, I was like, all right, I want to get my master's degree. I want to get introduced to new industries and start a business in a new industry outside automotive still. That was still a focus. So I ended up exploring all sorts of stuff. And where I landed was starting an addiction treatment center. And that may sound totally random, but there's obviously some background with it. I mean, I came there through struggles in my family and things like that. And I thought there was a cool business opportunity there. It wasn't necessarily about helping people. I thought it was great where I could have a great business opportunity in a great industry. And then as a positive, I could help people, not like going in to help people. If I was going to do that, it would be, a nonprofit. So still not racing, right? And this is only 2 years ago.
Carm here, and coming up, Matthew shares why he's glad that he didn't turn to racing as a career early in his life. Hey, imagine being able to see new product, tools, and equipment demos in a simulated real-world shop environment, complete with 8 service bays, lifts, vehicles, and a service counter. And in the same time, being able to have face-to-face communication with representatives of leading companies to ask questions and talk product capabilities, benefits, and utilization. That's what awaits you in the new Joe's Garage at Apex 2021, November 2nd through the 4th in Las Vegas. It's early in the planning stages, but already big names have reserved bays in Joe's Garage, including Autel, BG Products, Bosch, Coates, Hunter Engineering Company, and Napa Auto Care. Watch for additional companies to participate in the coming months and an official schedule of demos in the summer. Joe's Garage is part of the new Repair Shop HQ. It's an area dedicated specifically to service and repair, and it's located on level 1 of the Sands Expo. Visit aapexshow.com for more info. The automotive industry is blazing through with so many twists and turns and changes. Careful not to crash. Yet amidst it all, the demand for repair is a constant. So the questions remain, will repair shops adapt or die? Well, our friends at Shopware Shop Management Software get it. Their CEO is a shop owner. They understand what it takes to repair cars, and they're ready for the next big thing in automotive. Shopware tailors mainstream web-based technology to the needs of the industry's leading repair shops. You can run entirely digital, phone optional, and paper-free. Interactive online repair orders will not only meet the needs of contemporary drivers, but they are blown away by the experience. Connecting the aftermarket together, Shopware's ecosystem enables next-generation shop efficiency and customer satisfaction without compromise. Full service onboarding and best-in-class support provide everything a shop needs to transform its business and stay competitive long into the future. Enjoy more accurate quotes, more profitable jobs, busier technicians, and of course, happier customers. On the web at getshopware.com. Learn anything from all those failures?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, now where I am, and we'll come back to this if you want, but now where I am, I have a YouTube channel, and I have Haugen Racing. And it's looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I would have started this in college. I would have been one of the early birds on YouTube, and this thing would have been so much further along. But I would have missed all those other startup experiences and experience in other industries. I believe that those serve me very well. I'm way behind where I'd want to be and where I think I could be if I had just been all right, let's just do the racing thing. I've been talking about it since I was, 0. But I don't know. I mean, I haven't met another race car driver, and this isn't cocky in any way, but I haven't met another race car driver that's had experience in golf or in fashion or in addiction treatment or real estate or cryptocurrency, all those other things. And I think it helps me look at things differently and be willing to try interesting different paths even within the automotive business. So I'm thankful for it. It's all a journey.
I just wanted to hear you say that because so many of us consider that the failures that we have in life are failures and not learning moments. And for you turn them into deep-seated, rooted, I never want to do that again, but I learned so much from it.
Part of me wonders if I had just gone the racing route from the start, if I would always be like itching to look at other things, And now I'm comfortable. I've looked at them. I mean, obviously there's more, but I've looked at so many other things. Right now I'm in the right spot. This is what I should be doing. So it's,
You're what we call a serial entrepreneur. I mean, you're like a squirrel with a nut and you're just chasing them all over the place, but still you're at a point where you decided to get into racing. And I think that's I interrupted you a moment ago. How did that all come about?
So, throughout all these startups in grad school and college, I was pursuing racing or drifting and building cars, kind of more and more heavily, kind of as it went on. I guess it was right after college, I was competing in Pro-Am and starting to get my Formula Drift license. And that was kind of already, I was like, I think I want to get my license and go professional with this thing. And simultaneously, I was already doing events and demos on a professional level. So I was kind of both Pro-Am and pro. And it started as I just like drifting and it's like a hobby. And then it started to turn to, okay, I want to build a business that supports this whole drifting and racing thing and do both. And so that was kind of the idea with the treatment center, was do the treatment center and then I'd make more than enough money to fund racing and drifting and pursue that at a professional level and basically do both. And then after that shut down, that was right before COVID started in January. The treatment center shut down.
I got a question for you. Hindsight's 2020 on that. I mean, you talk about the stress that people went through with COVID. Would you have wished you kept it open?
I'm glad it shut down because I would have lost even more money keeping it open. It definitely would have shut down during COVID. As far as helping people, we were only ever 50% full. So the problem was we helped some people, but we weren't able to help that many people. And thankfully, there are some great treatment centers that stayed open through this COVID thing and were able to help people with it. So I wasn't the one, our business wasn't necessarily the one that would have helped a lot of these people, that are dealing with addiction during COVID. That was a blessing in disguise, right? Because I would have lost even more money, one. And two, it put me at a point where it's okay, I'm out of grad school and all these other businesses have failed. All I have now is Haugen Racing. And at that point, we were doing one YouTube video a week and I was super active on social media. And we were we'd get paid to go to demos and events. And I guess we had done Formula Drift as well, but I wasn't making money from it really, a little bit, but it wasn't a business really. And my parents were hey, you can either do this or go do something else, get a job, or you don't have any money. You can't start another startup. So go join something.
Did you lose a lot of money along the way? A ton of money?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking. I just thought maybe you would have come out even on every one of these, but what's your YouTube channel about?
So it's called Haugen Racing. They're all keeping consistent branding, It started as I had someone approach me, this kid from Arizona, and he made videos for other people. And he was hey, you have some crazy cars and it seems like you have a cool life from the outside and nobody knows it on a deep level because you just post on social media, but you don't have a YouTube channel where people can really get to know you. Let's do that. And I was okay. For a long time, my followers had been asking me to do YouTube, but I personally, I don't like the vlog thing, holding the camera out in front of you. I don't know. It's not my personality. I want to have someone film me and just be able to be in front of the camera. So I'm not going to do YouTube until I can do that. So I put it off it's probably been 2 years before that where people had been asking me to do a YouTube channel. And so when he approached me, he's he's going to film it. He's going to edit it, all that. And I had the treatment center at the time and was racing. So I was I also don't have time to edit videos and do all this. So I need help. So anyways, we started doing it and tried all sorts of different stuff. We tried some how to drift videos. I ended up doing a comedy video. And they all like opened up these interesting paths. And then when the treatment center shut down and I went full time, we'd already kind of had some ground, like kind of some foundation built for the YouTube channel. And that guy ended up leaving around that same time in January. And so I took full control of it. And yeah, now we're up to 4 uploads a week. Once a week, we do how to drift videos, which has been great for us. People love them. It's been really fun to teach. I used to teach wakeboarding in high school, actually. That's kind of where I learned some of that itch for teaching. And for me, I just love seeing people learn something and get stoked and like get to share that with them. And so teaching drifting has been awesome. And so we do that once a week. The other one we do is we have a build always going on. So that's, at our core, I've always been building cars.
But are you building to race or are you building to sell?
They're always for us. So they're either a show car for us or a race vehicle. Right now we're building like what's called a missile car. It's just like a super cheap drift car. I mean, to put it in perspective, including the car and all the safety parts, like done, ready to hit the track, it's $6,000. So it's super cheap race car.
But the car that you love, what do you got in that?
Yeah, so that is a 1998 Nissan Skyline R34. So it's like the GTR from like Fast and Furious, like the original one. It's getting upgraded right now, but it's a 4-liter Whipple supercharged CBM Motorsports 7-liter LS. It's over 1,000 horsepower on Ignite Red, which is like alcohol almost.
Needless to say, you have some heavy 6-figure numbers invested.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all in on this thing. I have 2 full-time employees right now, and then 1 part-time. So there's like 4 of us working on it, basically.
So you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but where's the income coming from? YouTube and other stuff you're selling?
Yeah, so we have there's a bunch of merch.
Yeah, he's showing me on the camera. Oh,
I'm turning the wrong way.
I see. It's a lot of merchandise. Okay, so you're selling merch.
What's interesting with the way like we've generated this fan base, right? And this follower base, whatever you want to call it. And it's amazing that, they want to be a part of it. They want to have, some of the merch that we sell and wear what we're wearing, all things like that. So we have HaugenRacing.com that sells that. There's sponsorship and partner money, right? Because we're racing, so we can get some money from that. And then YouTube, there's traditional ad revenue. Some of you guys that are listening probably know, and so it's super basic. But, if you see the ads in the first 30 seconds of a YouTube video, the creator gets paid for that. They all share in it, YouTube and the creator. And then there's brand deals as well, which are like more immersive in-video ads that the creator makes.
But this is like just a couple of years old. I mean, this is not like you've been doing this forever.
No, and I mean, I'm not in the green. Like I took out so my parents gave me a year and they're like, you have to make this business profitable in a year. I'm putting a pause there because I had 2 full-time employees. We were racing Formula Drift. Like that task was basically impossible. But they were like, that's what you got. Well, it's February 1st is when I started it. So I got 3 days and I don't think I'm going to make it. I mean, we're working on closing a partner deal that would possibly do it, but I ended up taking a bank loan out to go another year because I'm like, I got to give this a chance.
What's your master's in?
Entrepreneurship and innovation.
All right. So, I mean, you get the business plan, the vision, the focus, the goals. You get all that. No doubt you're going to be a pretty damn successful young drifter with a big brand and a lot of merchandise and a racing career.
I hope. That's the plan.
The reason that I wanted to do this podcast with you, which is kind of it's away from my normal, what we do as far as business acumen and leadership and, being a successful leader as we broadcast to the automotive aftermarket, is I wanted to hear your story. I'd heard it before in our icebreaker call, but now getting into the studio, it's you gave me a whole bunch more inspiration that I think people that are listening will love. Aspire to be the person who says, I failed 10 times, but we're on our way, learned an awful lot, and I think that's the story, the big story here: persistency, learning from your mistakes, and never saying no to an idea. It's amazing because they have been so diverse in your life. inspiration from your dad and your mom to get you where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And what was interesting is there was always pushback from them to do something else besides, something more traditional. But I just kind of drug them along. I'm like, this is the route I want to go, and so they support me.
Take me in that meeting when your mom and your dad are sitting down, and they said, "We want you to do something more traditional." Like, what was something they were suggesting that you could do?
Anything but racing. Grad school, for example, let's say half of the students in my cohort, I would say half were serious about business, already had ones or were starting ones in the program. And the rest, they're doing all sorts of stuff. I mean, there was like virtual reality, there was augmented reality, there was rideshare, there is, some traditional e-commerce, there is someone had a perfume business, someone had a car wash business. I mean, anything, you name it, and that's where I started the treatment center business. My mom has always, so she worked for General Electric in like the Jack Walsh age. And so she's like, why don't you just go, like, I think with my degree, I could get a pretty decent job. I've been told that anyways. Like even USC said, like a lot of the kids that were getting that degree either already had like a 6-figure job or were able to go get one afterwards, because you get some pretty high management experience and you can work kind of entrepreneurial, where you're like entrepreneurially within a corporation. And so was my mom's idea, go to work for, I mean, you name it, Microsoft, whatever, see what you can do. My dad was do what you want, I guess. Like he's super supportive. It's kind of more my mom, really, that's like the fighter, and not in a bad way.
Is she okay with where you are now?
She's learned to accept it, let's say. And I mean, she loves me to death, right? It's not like that, but I just don't know if she sees how this all works, but she's starting to. I mean, we just passed 30,000 subs last week. Like 2 weeks before that, we were at 25K. And I think 3 weeks before that, we were at 20K. So she's starting to see some of the traction.
Subs, that's slang for subscribers, everyone.
Yeah, YouTube subscribers. I don't have to do what grad school would say is a more traditional entrepreneurial startup. Because if I said I was going to start a YouTube channel and I was going to be, a pro drifter and an influencer, they'd be like, this is not a business. Here's the right word, venture capital backed businesses. That's generally what USC in my program was promoting, because they're easier to start in a way. You can go get capital. No one's going to give me capital really at the beginning to be like, I want to be a famous race car driver.
Would you keep in touch and tell me how you're doing? Because I so enjoyed this. I was inspired by your story, and I wish you just all kinds of great success. It sounds like as you measure it in your heart and it's not going in the right direction, you're the person that'll yang on the spot. I mean, you just say, we're going to do something different, or we're going to move. I don't mean that you would get out of Haugen Racing, but you would probably steer the ship in a different way so that you can find sponsors and gain new revenue. It's a perfect business model. This isn't working. What are we doing next?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a mission to make this work, because at this point, there's nothing else I want to do with my life. Like, honestly, truly. And so I'm like, I got to make this work.
You've been through the mill at a very young age, and I wish you all the success in the world. Matthew Haugen from Haugen Racing, thank you for this really cool story.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I hope just get something out of this. I mean, if anything, it would be, I think you guys can do anything. I really do. I'm in the bottom of my heart. I honestly think basically anybody can do anything, but you got to work at it, and you got to educate yourself, and you got to charge hard. Appreciate you being on, man. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.